this is a surprise, to your point, that she is talking about her husband's health and having to take care of him. We have not yet heard from President Trump, by the way, Tony. He is on his way to New York, where he will be attending a campaign event. But, of course, we are waiting for his reaction to this at any moment.
Yeah, and our thoughts are with the Gabbard family. I hope her husband's health improves. In the meantime, we'll deal with the politics. And on that, I want to bring in CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. She's been raised on the phone for us here. She was the Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism at Homeland Security in a prior administration. Sam, how will this exit change the Director of National Intelligence position, the work, the responsibilities?
Well, certainly, Tony, Tulsi Gabbard has used her tenure as Director of National Intelligence to restructure the intelligence community apparatus overall, as well as the priorities that are guiding intelligence community collection and analysis. Early into her tenure, Tulsi Gabbard did eliminate various task forces, including on malign foreign influence and other related matters. And Tulsi Gabbard's focus on threats to the homeland have really been driven by a lot of domestic priorities, including limiting illegal immigration to this country, as well as the president's very strong focus, for example, on counter-narcotics and broader immigration-related matters. That was very clear in the worldwide threat assessment that she released, as well as other public comments that she has made. Certainly, as she departs, there will be a lot of questions about what a new director will focus on from a prioritization perspective, and most importantly, Tony, what kind of relationship the new DNI will have with President Trump. President Trump has had a complicated relationship with the intelligence community in terms of undercutting at various points the role that intelligence has played, when it comes to Iran, North Korea, and otherwise. So regardless of who the new director is going to be, the outstanding question is how heavily President Trump will rely on that director, because, as Weija was pointing out, Tulsi Gabbard did have somewhat of a roller coaster relationship with the president.
Hey, Sam, this comes at a time when we're in a paused but still open-ended war with Iran. We have a situation in Cuba that sometimes seems to be moving from the back burner to the front. There's still Venezuela. It's a dangerous world out there. It's a big job. The president now has an opportunity to put somebody new in this role. Can you talk about how important the job of Director of National Intelligence is, particularly now?
Well, Tony, the job of the Director of National Intelligence is, unfortunately or fortunately, only as important as the Commander-in-Chief chooses to make it. Intelligence is only as important as the President chooses to make it. So, assuming that President Trump installs a new director that he trusts, the job of the ODNI, of the Director of National Intelligence, is critical. The Director of National Intelligence is not only responsible for ensuring that the president's daily brief, the intelligence briefing that the president gets every day, contains the most important intelligence analysis that the president needs to hear. The DNI is responsible for briefing the president at the top of every National Security Council meeting with the latest and greatest intelligence on a particular matter, like Iran, like Venezuela, like Cuba. But even beyond that, Tony, the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for not just overseeing the entire intelligence community, tens of thousands of people, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, but also ensuring that our intelligence community has the resources, talent, money, technology it needs to remain competitive in an incredibly complicated geopolitical moment. So the Director of National Intelligence is not only serving, the president's intelligence needs, they're doing so not just by briefing the president, but by ensuring that the health of the intelligence community is adequate to keep United States national security as high as it can be.
Yeah, and that's where the stakes of this continue to matter for us as a country here. Sam Vinograd, thank you very much. Weija Zhang, thank you very much. The news again is this. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, will step down at the end of June, citing the health of her husband, who has bone cancer. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Tony DeCoppola.
All right, so let's scaffold off of what Tony DeCopel just reported there with Weijia Jiang and others. Let's go ahead and bring up that letter that Tulsi Gabbard released. This is got the letterhead of the National Intelligence Office there and sending it directly to the president. I will read it to you, dated May 22nd, 2026, turning a page in the administration. She writes, "Dear Mr. President, I'm deeply grateful for the trust you placed in me and for the opportunity to lead the office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately," she goes on, she says, "I must submit my resignation effective June 30, 2026. She says her husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months, and at this time, I must step away." If we can drop that banner right there just for a second, because I promised the viewers I'd read it to him. Thank you so much. Step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through his battle. She goes on to talk about how her husband has been her rock and steadfast through her deployment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the bottom line, that is a letter from Tulsi Gabbard directly to the President of the United States. Catching all of this news and disseminating it to the world is Weijia Jiang, CBS News senior White House correspondent. Weijia, first of all, there's the personal angle to this story and then the political angle to this story. Tulsi Gabbard citing personal issues, but our own reporting has said that this has been something that some wondered if it was next to happen with the administration.
That's right, Reed. CBS News has been reporting in recent months that the president had been floating the idea of replacing DNI Gabbard after a rocky 10 years since she began her post here. Remember, before she took on this job, before she joined the administration, she was extremely vocal about the U.S. not getting entangled in foreign wars. And so when she was in the hot seat up on Capitol Hill defending the administration's decision to attack Iran, which ultimately led to the war that is ongoing, she said that the intelligence community did not have any evidence that Iran was building a nuclear weapon, which went directly against one of the reasons President Trump cited for launching that initial attack on Iran. There has been other episodes in which she had to make tough decisions about what to say because she could have been at odds with President Trump. For example, her deputy, Joe Kent, wrote a scathing letter in his resignation talking about his opposition to the Iran war, and she did not condemn those words afterwards. She did not personally fire Kent and ultimately issued a statement to say that it is the president who makes decisions about personnel. So, you know, there have been moments where her longevity has already been in question, Reed. So it's not necessarily surprising that she is departing now. What is completely new information is the reason that she has given the public. As you mentioned, she has to tend to her husband, who is battling a very rare form of cancer. Of course, our thoughts are with him and their entire family. In the letter, she ends it by thanking President Trump for understanding during this deeply difficult and personal time, Reed.
Of course, the public will remember at the beginning of President Trump's second term, Tulsi Gabbard was a lot more vocal. And then we started to see an arc where we saw and heard less of her in those cabinet meetings, et cetera. Can the public read anything into that? And did you yourself, as somebody who has proximity in covering the Trump administration, see that she was a little less vocal as the months went on?
Well, it wasn't just that she was less vocal, but there was certainly less exposure for her. You know, when the president was launching strikes from out of town, she was here in Washington with the vice president and other officials, but not in his inner circle when he was making some critical decisions when it came to the war in Iran. And so that was notable. And also, yes, after her congressional hearings, you know, we did start seeing and hearing less from her. But it should be noted that on the numerous occasions that the president himself and other spokespeople, including the press secretary you see right there, really defended Gabbard and insisted she wasn't going anywhere. It was just last month that the president was asked on Air Force One whether he still had confidence in Gabbard, and he said yes. So she was able to survive those challenging instances in which her view didn't necessarily align with the president's, and ultimately now she is leaving because of a personal matter, Reed.
All right, you are watching continuing coverage on CBS News 24/7. You see it right there on your screen, having a conversation with Weijia Jiang as Tulsi Gabbard resigns as Director of National Intelligence. You know, in recent weeks, she also was in the headlines relative to the Trump administration's push for election security, and she really set into momentum. I'm thinking of Fulton County, Georgia. Some actions that really looked at that as an issue. Going into the midterms, what happens to that issue that she was arguably in charge of?
Well, I don't think the issue goes away because it was President Trump, this administration, obviously, that was backing that trip to Georgia. And, you know, there has always been an argument that there's been foreign interference with regard to U.S. elections, and that is not something that I imagine the president himself and others will stop saying. But there really opens a question about who will replace Gabbard, because it hasn't only been in this term, but even in his first term, the president has had no issues going against what his intelligence community has found. He has, contradicted reports. He has contradicted statements from intelligence officials. And so it'll be really interesting to see who he puts in that position and what that might tell us about what he expects from this position moving forward.
Weijia, we just got this from President Trump's own Truth Social post. We will read that and then talk about it. The president says, unfortunately, after having done a great job, Tulsi Gabbard will be leaving the administration June 30th. Her wonderful husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed, as her letter to the president said, with a rare form of bone cancer. She rightfully wants to be with him, bringing back to good health as they currently fight a tough battle together. The president goes on to say, I have no doubt he will soon be better than ever. Tulsi, he says, has done an incredible job, and we will miss her. Her highly respected principal, Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Aaron Lucas, will be serving as Acting Director of National Intelligence, signed by President Donald Trump on Truth Social. So now we have an Acting Attorney General at the United States in President Trump's cabinet, and we also now have an Acting Director of National Intelligence, Aaron Lucas. How much exposure have you had to Mr. Lucas as a reporter, and what can people learn from maybe a little bit about what the future is for that office under his guidance?
Well, he has obviously been working under Gabbard, and so they have to have the same philosophy moving ahead. And, you know, this is somebody who the president also had to sign off on, so we don't know, in depth, how he will serve differently from Gabbard. But I think what's notable from the president's post there is that he continues to express confidence in Gabbard. And we've seen this now with every single departure from his cabinet, because unlike the first time around when he was filling those positions largely at the advice of others because he was brand new to Washington, for his second term, he handpicked every single person in his cabinet. These were all his people. And so obviously there's going to be any kind of resistance to criticizing them, because ultimately he is the one who made the decision to put them in that post. And so he continues to express his confidence in Gabbard there and said that she did a great job, which I do think is notable.
All right, Weijia Jiang chasing this story. This will be a big one for your dinner time headlines. Thank you so much for helping us get the jump on it in this breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard resigns as National Intelligence Director. Thank you so much, Weijia. Now to CBS News Homeland Security reporter Nicole Skanga. Nicole, another historic day in the Trump administration. What are you hearing from your post?
Yeah, Reed, and just to piggyback off of what Weijia was just saying about Aaron Lucas, he is an interesting pick, though, albeit not a particularly surprising one, because he had been serving in this number 2 position. But he has spent more than 20 years serving the intelligence community, primarily within the CIA. He was a former intelligence analyst, a clandestine operations officer. He was the former CIA chief of station. He was chief of staff at ODNI back when Rick Grinnell was the director back in the first Trump administration. He also served in the National Security Council. He was part of the libertarian think tank Cato Institute in the early part of his career. As for what Tulsi Gabbard will be remembered by, certainly a more of an unorthodox choice for this role. But back when she first took the helm as the director of the Office of National Intelligence, she launched ODNI 2.0, which was a major downsizing and restructuring of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. ODNI at the time said that it would reduce the staffing within the IC by 40% by the end of FY 2025, which, Gabbard at the time claimed would save the administration more than $700 million annually. She also made, quote, ending weaponization of the intelligence community a central theme, saying that she was going to restore trust in the intelligence community. But as Weija pointed out, it was very interesting as time passed under the Trump administration. She had a very sort of limited involvement in major Trump national security initiatives, especially Venezuela and Iran. And she was oftentimes sidelined in some of those discussions, particularly when it came to the Iran deliberations. She had reportedly clashed with the administration, emphasizing some of the differences between U.S. and Israeli goals and maintaining that Iran had not tried to revive its nuclear program after prior U.S. strikes. So a sort of colorful history and legacy that she created for herself at ODNI. And you also mentioned her unusual role in election security. And back in January, we know that she was seen in Fulton County during an FBI search of 2020 ballots and election materials at President Trump's request, and was never quite able to explain why she needed to be here. Of course, we know that this raised alarms just because DNI's role is normally focused on foreign intelligence threats, not domestic ones.
Well, and then, of course, at the very beginning of President Trump's second term, we saw her called on the carpet relative to so-called Signalgate, which is when a reporter was accidentally included in on a very important, what was supposed to be a highly secure communication between government officials. It's been a rocky go for her, who really, she's arguably a contrarian everywhere she goes, even had political ambitions for the presidency at one point.
Yeah, I ran for the presidency as a Democrat back in 2020. I was a campaign reporter at the time and spent many days with her campaigning in New Hampshire, where she felt like she had a shot at the time. Since then, of course, she has sort of switched her political leaning. She was always seen as an outsider within the Democratic Party, but then became more and more friendly with the Trump administration and did work very hard as one of the leaders on when Trump was putting together his staffing for his second term, for his second administration. She worked hand in hand with him to sort of develop the team, and then rose to this position as head of the ODNI. It will be interesting to see what, if anything, she pursues in the future. Of course, for now, understanding that she has to put her family first as her husband battles what she calls a rare form of bone cancer. And I will just say that her husband, her family, her sister has always been very close with her in back during her campaign days. They had a very prominent role on her campaign, so clearly taking this as an opportunity to spend more time with them in a personal capacity.
Nicole, just before I leave you, of course, now we have an acting National Intelligence Director. How long can that acting status go on before the president has to nominate somebody else? And then do they have to go through confirmation with the Senate?
Yeah, so Aaron Lucas has already been confirmed for his current role. If he were to be the permanent nominee, he would need to be nominated to, lead ODNI. This administration, though, seems to instead like to sort of appoint people for a limited time before they can find a sort of replacement. And we'll see. I mean, when Joe Kent left as the NCTC director under Gabbard. He was somewhat quickly replaced by Sebastian Gorka, who is now serving in an acting capacity in that role. So we do expect that the Trump administration will move to put a permanent leader at the helm of ODNI. As for how long, I believe it's something under 200 days before that individual can no longer serve in that acting capacity, Reed.
Fascinating time. Once again, continuing coverage, breaking news on CBS News 24/7. Tulsi Gabbard resigns as National Director of National Intelligence. You're watching CBS News 24/7. We'll be back with this big breaking news story, once again affecting President Trump's leadership.
I want to know what's going on in the world. You can't do that if you're just sitting in a chair, reading about what other people have found. You have to get out there and listen. By telling people about each other, you actually bring this country together. There are big questions that all of us are asking. I want to get you the answers. I'm Tony DeCopel. Join me on the CBS Evening News.
Who's our victim?
33 years old, naval intelligence officer.
Looks like there's a story there.
Oh, wow. That's really nice silk.
How about I just give you guys the highlights?
Federal agents!
Everyone down!
The robbery and the murder are connected.
Genius, McGee.
Elite. Very elite.
NCIS is all new CBS Tuesday, 8/7 Central, and streaming on Paramount+. Go to the ends of the earth, half a world away, and reach for the stars.
If I take time to think, they might go get Brad.
Experience thought-provoking,
Something that speaks to people across time.
innovative,
It's this magical process.
and truly original reporting.
You've discovered you're more of a songwriter. Where does that leave you?
Great question.
Because there's always something new under the sun. There's a lot more on the menu on CBS Sunday morning.
We're U.S. Marshals. We do this job because others can't.
Saddle up, cowboy.
Over 25 million viewers
Try to keep up.
have made CBS's Marshals TV's #1 news show.
Turn you into a cowboy yet?
Back on the crazy train. Let's go. My Marshals came out big today.
Marshals, a new era of Yellowstone. New episodes CBS Sunday and streaming on Paramount+.
I think I asked direct questions. I don't know that they're tough questions per se. Why doesn't he tell Republicans, come into my office, let's hammer this thing out?
Margaret, it's a totally fair question.
Why are you opposed to this deployment?
It's unconstitutional.
That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. That means a civil conversation with perspective.
Inside Abbey Road Studios,
This almost makes us Beatles.
the Police's Stuart Copeland
Love the drums. What is it about the orchestra?
creates Wild Concerto
Look at that. I'm Tony. I work for CBS.
to tell the story.
I'm Tony DeCopel, live from one of the many cities in this region under fire.
You have to be there, seeing it firsthand.
We have a team of correspondents across the Middle East and at the White House.
I called President Trump to talk about his latest thinking.
Missiles coming in, and there's another one.
You can see how empty the streets are. You heard the explosion?
The CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel, weeknights.
Continuing breaking news coverage on CBS News 24/7, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, out from the Trump administration effective June 30th. This was her choice to do so. She notified the President of the United States that her husband has been diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer, and she is now going to devote all of her power to helping him to overcome cancer. President Donald Trump, in recent moments, posting on Truth Social full-throated support for Tulsi Gabbard and also well wishes for her husband, who now has this enormous personal battle to fight. So let's continue the conversation live to CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga. Nicole, this is a difficult time when you consider we're at war with Iran. We are seeing anti-Semitic attacks here in these United States and the need for national intelligence to try to create safer places. And then we're going into the midterms. It's a difficult time for somebody with her power to leave and leave it in the hands of an acting director of national intelligence, no?
Yeah, this is an incredibly challenging time. Not only do we have the ongoing war with Iran and a ceasefire on the brink, we also have the ongoing situations in Venezuela and in Cuba. And as you mentioned, all of this is coming at a time of heightened national security, heightened concerns about the state of the homeland with the increase in domestic violent extremism and concerns about the targeting of faith-based institutions and, of course, anti-Semitism. So this is a very tenuous time for this administration. While we were at break, Reed, I was doing a little bit of research just to understand how long Aaron Lucas, who was the #2 under Gabbard, could serve in this acting capacity. Now, since Gabbard is going to serve in her role through June 30th. From there, it'll be about 210 days that Lucas can continue to serve in an acting capacity, which actually does bring his leadership, should the Trump administration keep him in place, through to January of next year. So for better or worse, for stability-wise, it might be better to have this longtime CIA and intelligence official there through the midterms and into the new year. That is a possibility should the Trump administration choose for that to be the case. There's really only one person, though, who will decide on the next head of ODNI, and that is the president.
All right, we appreciate this. This will definitely drive headlines going into dinner time. Tulsi Gabbard leaving the Trump administration. By the way, she's the 4th cabinet member to leave the Trump administration. Continuing coverage throughout the day on CBS News 24/7.
U.S. Marshals, we do this job because others can't.
Saddle up, cowboy.
Over 25 million viewers
Try to keep up.
have made CBS's Marshals TV's #1 new show.
Our Marshals came up big today.
Marshals, a new era of Yellowstone. New episodes CBS Sunday and streaming on Paramount+.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of.
I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's gonna be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were going to find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that.
We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police! You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
Why doesn't he tell Republicans, come into my office, let's hammer this thing out?
Margaret, it's a totally fair question.
Politics isn't a game. Why are you opposed to this deployment?
It's unconstitutional.
Politics is about policy. I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
Special Agent Gunman, calling glass.
You're a spy.
Well, nothing gets past the feds, does it? We got work to do.
I don't really trust anyone.
Those are the only people worth trusting.
CIA. New series CBS Monday after a new FBI.
Go to the ends of the earth, half a world away. Reach for the stars.
If I take time to think, they might go get Brad.
Experience thought-provoking,
Mystical in every sense of the word.
and truly original reporting.
That's your superpower.
There's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
It's time for the CBS News original 60 Minutes CBS Sunday.
I want to know what's going on in the world.
I'm Tony.
You can't do that if you're just sitting in a chair reading about what other people have found.
What do you think of that? Why?
There are big questions that all of us are asking. I want to get you the answers.
How are you?
I'm Tony DeCopel. Join me on the CBS.
Hi, thanks for joining us here on CBS News. I'm Lindsay Reiser, and we're following breaking news out of Washington, where the National Intelligence Director, Tulsi Gabbard, is resigning from the Trump administration. Gabbard is a veteran who has been outspoken about avoiding foreign interventions. She'd largely been sidelined from President Trump's national security operations, including in Venezuela and Iran. Gabbard is the fourth senior member of the administration to leave or be fired in President Trump's second term. In her resignation letter addressed to the president, she writes, "I am deeply grateful for the trust you placed in me and the opportunity to lead the Office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th, 2026. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by her side." President Trump then posted a note on Truth Social saying in part Gabbard did an incredible job and that she will be missed. He also announced Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence Aaron Lucas will serve as Acting Director of National Intelligence. We have team coverage on this. Homeland Security Correspondent Nicole Skanga is at our Washington bureau, but we are going to begin with CBS News Senior White House Correspondent Weijia Jiang. What more are we learning about her departure?
Well, Lindsay, I think you laid it out in that letter that she submitted to President Trump. She said that she has to be with her husband during this very difficult and deeply personal time for her family, as he has been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. And so obviously our thoughts are with her and her family as they battle this together. That is also what the president said in his post about it, saying, unfortunately, after having done a great job, Gabbard will be leaving the administration. He went on to say, of course, it makes sense that she wants to be with her husband at this time. But, you know, obviously there have been speculation already in the past several months, as you laid out, that she might be the next to depart the cabinet. But, you know, it is notable that President Trump did not mention any of that during his post, in which he praised her and talked about what a great job she has done. It's also notable that despite our reporting that he had been considering replacing her before, that when asked publicly, he had always said that he has full confidence in Gabbard.
Obviously, this is a trying time for her and her family, but how else will her time there be remembered? Can you give us any more examples or evidence that we have that maybe she was on the outs with the administration?
Well, as you mentioned, even before she joined this administration, she was extremely vocal about the U.S. staying out of any foreign conflicts. And we saw that come to light when she testified on Capitol Hill, even though she always stressed that, you know, those decisions would always be the president's, and it was her job to inform him of the intelligence and what the community had gathered. She did testify that there was no evidence that Iran was building a nuclear weapon, which was a big reason why the president said he launched that initial strike into Iran that led to the ongoing war. Another instance is when one of her deputies, Joe Kent, wrote a scathing letter opposing the administration's decision to attack Iran in his resignation letter. And Gabbard did not publicly denounce what he said. She did not fire him, even though there had been pressure to do so. And so, you know, these are examples of when she was not in direct alignment with the president. But again, she was able to, you know, stay in her position and navigate those challenges despite being, you know, not exactly in line with the president.
Gabbard will be the fourth cabinet member, as I mentioned, to depart from the post, senior cabinet member. Are we getting any indications of whether the White House is concerned about this?
No, this is not rare for there to be, you know, departures in cabinets, you know, a year and a half in. So I don't think that we have any reporting that suggests that there is concern from the White House, especially because when you look at the reasons why each of these secretaries has departed, they are all quite different. But sure, it is noteworthy that we now have an acting director of national intelligence while the country continues to be at war with Iran.
Weijia Jiang, thank you. Let's now go to CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga. Nicole, what would you like to add?
I do want to point out that election security has been a point of controversy under DNI Gabbard's term during the second Trump administration. ODNI's posture on election threats remains under scrutiny, even as Gabbard sort of exits. In their 2026 annual threat assessment, it omitted foreign election interference for the first time in nearly a decade, Lindsay, suggesting just a major shift in priorities for the intelligence community. We also remember that incident that happened in Fulton County, Georgia, back in January, on January 28th. There was an FBI search of a county election facility down in Fulton County, Georgia, that seized 2020 ballots and election materials, and Gabbard was spotted on the scene. She later told congressional officials that she attended at President Trump's request and facilitated a brief phone call between Trump and FBI agents who were on that scene. But it really raised alarms because the DNI's role typically has been focused on foreign election interference and foreign intelligence threats, not on domestic law enforcement activities. Obviously, this transition comes at a time of immense challenges for the national security community, not only the ongoing conflict in Iran, but you also have continuing situations with Cuba, Venezuela, not to mention a very heightened threat environment here on the home front. Her replacement, Aaron Lucas, will start in his acting capacity in June 30th. He can serve for about 210 days in that role, which brings us to around January. We know that Lucas was the number 2 to Gabbard, that he has served the intelligence community for decades, including at the CIA in a role as a former intelligence analyst, a clandestine operations officer during Trump 1.0. He served as chief of staff under then acting DNI Richard Grenell. So someone who brings a lot of experience both within the intelligence community and serving at the appointment of the president during his last term.
You've been following her for quite some time, right? You were a campaign reporter in 2020, and you covered her campaign in great detail. What can you tell us from that time about what you learned?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time covering Tulsi Gabbard, then Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard's campaign in New Hampshire. She was always seen as kind of an unorthodox candidate, then running as a Democrat, but more with an independent strain there. And she really appealed to a lot of voters in the Granite State who felt like they both had an affinity for Bernie Sanders and that sort of part of the Democratic Party, but also some of the populism that we have seen in Trump 1.0 and 2.0 also appealed to those kinds of voters. And so she had this political capacity to really bridge the gap between, Democratic and Republican voters in places like New Hampshire. Of course, it didn't really pan out for her in that state or any other early state, and she eventually dropped out of that race and became more influential within Trump's circle as he began compiling his team for the second Trump administration. I also know that she was quite close with family members on the campaign trail. I remember Abraham, her husband, being her videographer. Her sister V played a very prominent role in her campaign, kind of managing the day-to-day. So her family has always been a really integral part of her life. It makes sense to me now, of course, in light of the news, that she would want to step aside to be closer with them.
Okay, Nicole Skanga, thank you. We will continue to follow this story and bring you updates as they happen. For now, we are going to take a quick break. You're watching CBS News 24/7.
The only way to get a 360-degree understanding of America is to get out there in America. There really is no swing at all when it comes to the priorities of everyday people. We care about how secure our job is, whether we can plan on retiring with dignity, whether our kids can have a brighter future than we have today. These are the fundamentals of American life, and I think they can be again.
Why doesn't he tell Republicans, come into my office, let's hammer this thing out?
Margaret, it's a totally fair question.
Politics isn't a game. Why are you opposed to this deployment?
It's unconstitutional.
Politics is about policy. I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of.
I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's going to be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were going to find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that.
We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police!
You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
I'm Tony DeCopel from a region at war tonight.
To tell the story,
Hello up there.
you have to be there, seeing it firsthand.
I'm Tony. I work for CBS.
Can you clarify what this war is about? How do you avoid this becoming a death trap? This war only seems to be accelerating.
The CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel.
So right off the top, the moment President Trump wanted, the end of Jerome Powell's time leading the Federal Reserve and the beginning of Kevin Warsh as the man tapped to lead. There he is being sworn in right there. The President and Warsh attended that swearing-in ceremony just a short time ago.
I know that Kevin has the deepest respect and reverence for the institution he will lead starting today. We're so lucky to have him. I want Kevin to be totally independent. I want him to be independent and just do a great job. Don't look at me. Don't look at anybody. Just do your own thing and do a great job, okay?
My goal now is to create an environment in which the best people can do their life's best work and to face every challenge in the spirit of common purpose and devotion to the national interest. In a word, to excellence.
Meanwhile, the president heads to New York today to campaign for Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, who's trying for re-election. The president is expected to tout the tax cuts under his One Big Beautiful Bill, even as